The best of Money Matters. Right Business.
Welcome to The Right Business, where we dive deep into the stories of trailblazers who dare to disrupt the status quo, find the gap in the market to find the right business. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, global supply chains have long struggled with unpredictability, whether it's delays, a lack of real-time visibility, or the inability to respond quickly to disruptions. And for logistics teams, this often means missed deadlines, inflated costs, and frustrated customers. Portcast is tackling this head-on by making supply chains more predictive and dynamic. Through real-time container tracking, AI-powered predictive visibility, and dynamic demand for forecasting, the company is helping logistics players move from reactive firefighting to proactive decision-making. Portcast is also working with shipping lines, air cargo operators, and freight forwarders to transform how global logistics operates, making it not only more efficient but more sustainable. And to find out more about how Portcast is reshaping supply chain intelligence, joining us today is Nidhi Gupta, who is the CEO and co-founder of Portcast. Nidhi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right, Nidhi, we read that Portcast was built to address, growing inefficiencies in the global supply chain, especially around visibility and predictability. What gap did you and your team see in the logistics space that led you to create Portcast?
Yeah, so I actually worked in the logistics space for about 10 years. And can you imagine there are still people who are manually checking what's happening to their cargo and shipments. Oh, wow. They're looking at a ship on a world map and trying to figure out if that ship is actually going to sail and arrive on time. They're checking documents related to logistics and manually entering data into a system. The new generation doesn't really want to do this. And honestly, technology is at this stage where we actually can spend time in much better ways. Also, what this actually means in terms of business impact is that if you miss any kind of delivery, if you don't send the truck on time at the port, if you are getting charged more than what you should, that's bottom line impact. And the constant supply chain disruptions are just making it worse every other day.
Right. Well, so now you've created Portcast, which is a platform that offers real-time container tracking, predictive visibility, and dynamic demand forecasting for logistics companies. Could you walk us through how each of these solutions actually work in practice?
Yeah, happy to. So in terms of the real-time visibility of shipments, what we really believe in is what manufacturers and logistics companies need is they want to know if there is any exception on their shipments as soon as possible in real time. And that's what we provide. So we give information on where any shipment across the global seas or, air space is and what's going to happen to it. Is there any risk? Will it arrive late? Is it stuck somewhere? And that's what visibility is about. It is then made predictive by using machine learning and AI technology, which takes into account all the disruptions that are happening in supply chains due to geopolitical impact, the wars that we've seen already in our lifetime, tariffs, any climate disruptions that we're seeing. And in terms of the demand forecasting, we then are able to predict if the cargo movement is going to fluctuate, if there's going to be fewer shipments because of any trade patterns that we're seeing.
Okay, but how reliable is AI in this term?
Yeah, I think AI is at the stage where it's getting more and more powerful, especially in the last few years. There's been so much hype about it. Everyone's talking about it. I think AI is powered through the data. And if underlying data is cleaned, validated, its quality, then AI has the power to really transform it. And that's kind of the two-step process that we look at. First, making sure that the underlying data that we aggregate from multiple sources is made quality. We remove all of the gaps. And then we have trained the models which are very domain specific, which look at the exceptions that have happened over the years. And then they're able to predict it much better. But it's also important for the AI to not just be a black box. And, it's very hard humanly to trust AI if you can't explain it.
Right.
So the more explainable, the more reasoning we can give, which is intuitive for the operator, the better it becomes.
Very interesting. Well, you also talk about predictive predictive visibility, which goes a step further than simply tracking where a container is. So how is this different from traditional container tracking tools? And could you give an example of how this helps your clients make better real-time decisions?
Yeah, I think, when we order something on an e-commerce app, we can actually see when the parcel is arriving. We can see the person on the motorbike.
I want to know when my package comes.
Yeah, but you don't have time to look at it all the time, every second. And imagine like millions of dollars of cargo moving on oceans for like 90 days and nobody has time to look at it every day.
True.
What you really care about is if something has gone wrong, I want to know as soon as possible because I want to tell the customer who's waiting for that cargo. I want to tell the production team that, okay, hey, the assembly line can likely stop. So let's kind of figure out an action plan. Let's ship in cargo from somewhere else. So you want to avoid costs. You want to avoid situations where customers are unhappy. And that's where predictive information means that we're not just looking at what's happening today. We're preempting what's likely to be a risk. It could be in the next day, it could be 40 days out, and that allows us to plan supply chain and mitigate things better.
I mean, time is money, right? Especially in cases like this. Now, beyond just predicting ETAs, Portcast seems to surface the why behind delays like congestion or weather or even geopolitical, tensions here. So how important is that layer of explanation for the customers? Does it help them respond more proactively or improve their internal planning?
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine a textile manufacturer in Sri Lanka who's making T-shirts for a large, clothing brand in the UK, and they are shipping cargo from Colombo to the UK. If they are getting delayed, let's say constantly, and their customer, the clothing brand, has no idea what's happening, the clothing brand is going to think this supplier is completely unreasonable and let me kind of start looking for an alternative. However, if the supplier can actually say, look, it's no fault of ours. The ships are actually running late because they have to go all around South Africa because of the Suez Canal being blocked, because of the geopolitical issues. We have to take 2 times more time. We're actually spending more supply chain costs and paying more for freight. And yet it's out of our control because, we can't manage this situation. Like, they can explain it better. They share that they know about what's happening. And that's where, they can still manage the expectations of their customers and retain the customers. So I think that's kind of one example of how explainability, what's going wrong in our supply chains, helps.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't strain relationships, right, with businesses. So you also offer dynamic demand forecasting. How does this feature work, and who typically benefits the most from it?
This is about how much cargo is moving from one port or one airport to another. Okay. And this is powerful for the owners of the ships and the planes, so the shipping carriers or the airlines. And how it benefits them is that if there's going to be less cargo in a particular week or a particular day, they can basically reduce the capacity on, fewer aircraft, let's say, or have sort of a smaller ship that's scheduled for that particular week. They can also manage the rate, so for example, when we book hotels, suddenly when there's a peak situation, the hotel prices go up. So similar to that, the rate management, the pricing and the capacity management can be done better in case of any constant disruptions.
Okay. Well, you also operate across ocean freight, air cargo, and port terminal data. How do you tailor your solution to work across, such diverse transport modes and markets? Are there any nuances you take note of?
Yeah, so there are some fundamental sort of machine learning and AI models which are quite similar across all of these products that we offer, but then there are definitely differences. For example, if you look at an ocean shipment, it takes, like I said, 40 to 90 days to go from one port to another. But an air shipment has to arrive, let's say, in 1 to 3 days. So the urgency of the cargo is different, which means that how frequently or how real time that information has to be provided to somebody has to be different. And that has an impact on how the technology is built, how the cloud processing is being done. Secondly, the risk factors that impact ocean can be slightly different from air. So, for example, the geopolitical conflict in India and Pakistan with the airspace being closed, that impacts obviously the aircraft or the air cargo, but not the ship patterns. So, yes, there's certain risk factors which have to be taken into account differently. And, those are just some of the differences.
Right. Well, Nidhi, let's say I'm a client who comes to you. Maybe I'm struggling with shipment delays or low visibility across supply chain. What does your onboarding and implementation process look like? And how quickly can I start seeing value from your platform?
I think that's kind of really the beauty of it, that we can start providing the information almost instantly, almost the same day. It does require integration into different internal systems, ERP, transport systems, etc. And that can be typically done in less than 2 weeks if there's a technology savvy team on the other side. So because of the short timelines and, the real speed of the implementation, the value can absolutely be seen from day one that it's deployed.
Amazing. I mean, based on our conversation here, you guys have so many cool features that are even crucial and important and, just crucial for the logistics space here. So what has been the feedback been like? Have there been any standout moments or customer stories where Portcast clearly helped improve their performances?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, a lot of us started understanding supply chains, ship movement ever since COVID, when, there was just a lot of interest in this space. Definitely. And major news started reporting about this. And since then, we've just seen constant supply chain disruptions. So it's becoming more and more important to do what we do. Maybe a couple of stories of customers which are really top of mind for me at this point. Just this week, we've had 2 large manufacturers who've moved from US global companies to sort of work with us. So that's been really encouraging in terms of how we can prove the value of our technology. And then there has been an increasingly additional AI, additional product development that we can do on top of what we already do. And we've seen, companies collaborating with us and helping us build that product roadmap further.
Amazing. Well, before we let you go here, Nidhi, are there any new product developments you're particularly excited about? I mean, what's next for Portcast?
Yeah, I think, we are inherently a technology company. And if you think about technology, everyone's talking about generative AI. I think we're kind of really implementing it in live. We're using large language models to look at the unstructured data, the documents in the logistics supply chain. So extracting information from documents automatically in a very accurate manner and making sure that we're not kind of overcharging for freight. We're doing auditing of invoices, fully automated. For this, we're also on a Google AI program that we've been selected, which was just announced this week. So we're most looking forward to this.
Very interesting. Well, thank you so much, Nidhi, for joining me today.
Thank you.
That was Nidhi Gupta, who's the CEO and co-founder of Portcast. This has been The Right Business with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.